We each are the deciders of that which we experience. We either formulate ideas via the body of vehicles, or we agree with the ideas as created by others. These ideas then are consciousness installed, and effected will be the simulation of whatever the nature of the ideas happen to be. In reality, then, we each are responsible for our creational situations and circumstances, wherein nothing can transpire absent of our agreements, the ideas we have chosen to consciousness implant. This would apply to an entire species, where although the species will comprise of individuals, all with their own uniquely developed consciousnesses, that the individuals are, however, as a species, so all must have a somewhat similar consciousness design that has effected for them shared circumstances, broadly speaking, in regards to body form, creational positioning, etc. For as idea agreements converge between individuals, so must the affected circumstances. The more ideas are shared between beings, the more their experience comes into alignment, to the extent that not only the planet they inhabit is the same, but perhaps then the same country, same town, that they feature within the same family, etc. All the ideas that come into a conjunction between individuals that present as a particular species, we may reference as a collective consciousness. A collective consciousness really being a group of individuals that are bound together through ideas they agree with that are the same. And so, should we be set to have a lifetime as a particular species, so we need to take on all the ideas that pertain to it, that we can have that species experience. A little like downloading the game of being human as an example, and where although we take on the collective consciousness program that is humanity, we also add our own consciousness contribution to it, however we have developed it throughout our tenure in the simulator. And just as an individual can only experience effects through what they have created idea-wise, or the ideas agreed to, as created by others, this applies to collective consciousnesses also. For anything to befall an entire species, such as humanity, so the agreements must be installed in the overall human collective consciousness for this to be so. Since humanity's inception as the species is a creation of the reptilians, agreement then to the reptilians has been secured from the first moments of the human becoming so. For the reptilians would utilize the initial human generations as slaves. This slave master agreement program would be installed and maintained ever since, despite the reptilians operating more covertly in recent times, and retained then is the foundation of the human experience, that of control to this current moment. The humans, however, perpetually maintain agreement to their enslaved experience, made possible through the eons and generations where this agreement was secured, and remains now as humanity's subconscious underlying program, an underlying subconscious generating enslaved experience that most will be unaware of, that despite humanity perhaps consciously deciding to rebel against the controlling system, the vast bulk of humanity's consciousness, the subconscious, will still be effecting these very circumstances, that of continued control at the hands of the reptilians. That until the entirety of the consciousness, including the subconscious, is effaced and released, through the process of awareness, regardless of the protests and the insurrections, humanity will remain in an enslaved situation. With this as the foundation of the human experience, as the controllers desire to expand upon the control they have over humanity, as these are additional ideas, so they must additionally be agreed with and installed in the collective consciousness of the human race. The Dark Force reptilians have various mechanisms by which they can have humanity agree with the greater expressions of restriction, chiefly through the presenting of ideas that seem beneficial on the surface, but are laced with other ideas that, as the humans agree with the surface beneficial fronts, they are taking on these additional controlling ideas, the intentionalities, intents also being ideas of the reptilians to move humanity into heightened levels of subjugation. And of course, via the various subliminal technologies, can these additional controlling ideas be consciousness implanted also. For indeed, where we place our focus and attention is another means of having the ideas of that which claimed our focus being a consciousness installed. The televisions and computer games are viable tools then of programming the human consciousness that effected are the circumstances the reptilians desire, through the themes presented via the various entertainment technologies. The dark forces now currently wish to exact depopulation upon humanity, or even a complete annihilation. For this to be possible, again, they must install these ideas that they can be effected. As things stand, the controllers have successfully implanted all manner and variety of depopulation-causing ideas into human consciousness, many of which I have been shown and shared over the years. In isness reality terms, every idea of all consciousness is in effect now, but through the mechanics of human consciousness, as it effects physical level simulation, rather than all effects being present as they are in actuality, only certain simulation will be present as overall human experience at any given moment, the simulation that is the idea agreement currently being held to. And through the consciousness additional idea components of time and space, an idea will become its effect only after a series of frames or stages have elapsed. A little like watching a movie, the entirety of the film is present on the disc, but through the movie affording apparatus, so the individual must be taken through the process of idea cause to effect a culmination, just as a consciousness effects body forms, which process the idea agreements to their effect outcome. And so, among all the idea agreements that human consciousness comprises of, that which becomes overall as a physical level human experience are the ideas that become most prominent, the movie currently playing, and only if held in prominence long enough that the effect be realized, that the movie's end be reached. And should the agreement be replaced by another as that which is forerunning, so the movie disc is changed and another begins to roll out to its conclusion. On the real side, then, we are shown ideas that are in effect now, as everything is its effect in the nowness of the isness. But in regards to they becoming a physical level manifesting, as I said, this depends on they being held to long enough that they become physical level actualized. And so the various idea agreements effecting as depopulation events pertaining to humanity, these can only ever be potentialities, and ultimately, if they come to pass, physical level wise, is according to humanity and what it decides collectively. What would follow then would be one such a possibility that the dark forces have installed in human overall consciousness. For I would find myself operating within the simulated circumstances, not simply witnessing it from an aside from creation, real awareness view position. I would be stationed in my former physical level UK house, recreated on the real side, which then would represent the consciousness. Specifically, I would be on the top floor and in the company of a group of other unidentified individuals, though those on their respective awareness processes as impressions suggested. The top floors represent more so the unseen other dimensions of life, and as everything begins on the real side and gradually processes through to the physical, which would be the ground floors of our consciousness representing houses, that the top floor would be our position would reiterate how this event I will reveal, although in effect now in actuality is but a potentiality. It has yet to become physical level manifested. For the entirety of the earth would be in a state of complete desolation, every city, town and structure reduced to rubble, the overwhelming feature being the planet as though on fire. Impressions revealed that the instrument of this global devastation, and indeed depopulation, if not complete human annihilation, would be in fact a particular body type. Though initially the group and myself would see but glimpses of the body forms responsible, as they somewhat flashed by the windows of the upper floor of my house, and amidst all the smoke, fire and brimstone, this would further obscure whatever the forms were that had laid waste to the planet. However, as moments passed, based on the visual glimpses we were afforded, it became apparent that the body forms responsible were huge winged dragons, of such a number and size that they had reduced the planet to the state we currently were witnessing it as, in a very short duration of time. Where these dragons had come from was never revealed, but the dark forces had facilitated the means by which they could feature on the earth, through the idea agreement successfully installed in human consciousness that effected that this could take place. I suspect the dark forces may have made use of portals to bring these dragons to earth from wherever they hailed from. For a number of real-side experiences shared in recent months have revealed the dark forces' schemes to unleash all manner of destructive body types and creatures onto the earth through the opening of such portals, and where I and others had been assigned on the real side the task of shutting these dubious conduits down. At this moment in the experience, I was uncertain as to if these were body forms, much like animals, where they are directly animated by the real awareness prior to the formulation of the secondary personal self brought into being through free will creating of ideas, or if these were dragon body types where the secondary self had been established. But as it transpired, regardless of these two options, what was motivating the dragon's behaviour wasn't through a consciousness program that dictates behaviour, as with, say, a predatory animal that, although animated directly by real awareness, operates in more abrasive to other body types ways, or perhaps where in the case of the dragons having established secondary personal selves, that their free will inclination is to be destructive, but instead, throughout and across the earth had been placed crystals of a kind by the dark forces whose mastermind this event was. Impressions revealed that these crystals were sourced from the same creational position that these dragons came from, and that the dragons and the crystals shared a kind of mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship. As though the dragons were dependent on the crystals, as they emitted certain frequencies essential for their well-being. The dark forces then had to bring the crystals to the earth that the dragons could operate there, but had additionally altered the crystals, that although they still produced frequencies that sustained the dragons, the frequencies had been distorted in such a way that they effectively induced madness in the dragons, and indeed then drove them to extreme destructive inclination. The dragons then, despite their forms, would not have behaved in this way, nor indeed would they have chosen to be removed from the creational position that they called home, wherever that was, but just as dragons are depicted in the movies which really are documentaries of actualities of situation and body types operating in creation, so these dragons could produce devastating fire from their mouths. And hence the earth being in the incinerated state it was, as revealed in this experience, another viable depopulation and human eradication option for the dark forces. And now the group and I would have in our possession one of these crystals, and like a moth to flame, so one of the dragons would smash into the house we were in, squeeze its way inside through an opening it had created with its fire and strength, and be drawn to the crystal we had in our midst. It was at this point, however, that I determined these dragons were body forms where the secondary personal self had indeed been established, and although they lacked the ability of speech, they could communicate telepathically. For as the group and I held the crystal, we would as though alter the frequency it was emitting, restoring it to what it had been prior to the dark force's manipulation. The dragon approaching us instantly placated, and we would hurl the crystal from the window. The dragon would follow it, and where it and the crystal it was pursuing promptly vanished from the earth. For just as has been a theme of real side experiences recently, where new friends have been mitigating and nullifying the harmful electromagnetic technologies of the dark forces, that which has been bombarding Earth and humanity, this was a similar situation here. As though we removed the distorted frequency taint the dark forces had applied to the crystal, and created the means by which the crystal and the dragon could return home, as both vanished from the earth after the crystal was restored, as I said. This suggested then our course of action, that although I wouldn't be shown this, my impressions were that we would very likely proceed to restore all crystals that had been brought to the earth, and facilitate the means by which all dragons could be returned to their place of origin. That although the dark forces may be able to install these depopulation event ideas, we can also effect alterations to them. We can lighten the impact or even nullify the idea that even if it should become physical level manifest, its impact will be lessened, negligible, or non-existent. And indeed this whole situation had presented as opportunity also. We had established a contact with the dragon species, and further impressions revealed that they were receptive to the opportunity of the ears, that very likely they would begin their own processes of awareness. For as we operate in creation and multi-dimensionally, that which we are about, the recognition of the ears, this idea will feature in the experience in some shape or form with all those we engage with, that even with those that choose to be antagonistic, the seed will be planted, even if subconsciously. For every body type, irrespective of their life choices, are animated by real awareness, all of which has this overall is recognizing imperative, and oftentimes, simply by being in the presence of those on their awareness processes, so will all body types be bothered and agitated by that which they know, the real awareness part of them at any rate, is the real purpose, that of is recognition. And we can be the catalyst, the spark, for this process to begin in others, even in the direst of antagonistic circumstance. And in regards to the dragons, it will be interesting to see what transpires with them, and what part they may play as a species in the unfolding simulator situations that are to come. For as I said, all the dragons of the species were at the point of at least being open to the references of the ears, and very likely I and those of my group will have further dealings and encounters with them. But for now, this potential overall human experience event was in the process, I would suggest, of being nullified.